is funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I lay in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, cop myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and breathe and connect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress. The rain be looking like what blessings dropping. And so I got myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening if you're in the United States. A few technical problems. That's my fault. I didn't start my external hard drives, which has the opening video, but we are on early. So
now think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Just think about this for a moment. You're going to spend an hour listening to somebody who does the same thing every week. It doesn't change the intro. And this is the 4,767th time that he has messed that up. Which now it comes in. You see what I'm talking about? And what happens is, it's like, I wouldn't listen to him. So my suggestion is, if you have a remote or mute, just hit the mute when it looks like his lips are moving.
No, actually, it was a black screen because we were in mourning for one of our favorite Divided We Standers, George Lennon. His New York Giants had a great, well, not a comeback because they didn't win, but they were winning with a few seconds left, and they ended up losing the game because they missed an extra point. Oh my God, so it's pretty bad. Yeah. Anyway, we all know what tonight's topic is. It's not the Giants game. It's No Kings. And Dave, I believe you participated to some degree, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. As I say every week, I mean, it goes without saying, but I say it anyway. D.C., of course, is protest central because the White House is here. Now, right now, of course, it's spread across the country, Chicago, Portland, Memphis. Trump is expanding whatever it is he thinks he's doing. But of course, yesterday was a day. I said last week that I would hold, my opinion. And I think yesterday was a tremendous success. I really do. So why? I'll tell you what I did, and then if anybody else, on our watching and listening tonight, put up something that you saw. So I'm talking about, specifically Washington, D.C. So in Washington, D.C. currently, there are two 24/7. One is a vigil, one is a peace vigil, and that's in Lafayette Park. We talked about that before. That was torn down on Trump's orders. And also there is a 24/7 duel, really aimed against Trump at Union Station, and two groups are doing that. One is called Flare, which is a citizens group, and the other is a group of veterans who are opposed to Trump. Early in the week, Trump sent his people again to tear down the portion, 3/10 that were with Flare. When I got there, so I said, I will start there and just see what's up. So started at Union Station yesterday, and lo and behold, Flare had legally challenged and had gotten a new order allowing them to stay. Now, again, typical Trump people, not Trump's not good. They have to move, not off site. So my guess is, looking at, we're talking about it, some of us, they want to move them a little bit, actually just a little bit to the right, so they're not right in front of the station. So again, of course they're going to hassle you no matter what, but that was good. So then Judy and I started walking, and we walked from there to the banner, Donald Trump, 1984 George Orwell banner, and there was a protest going on there. And then we walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of protesters there. You get lost in the shuffle. Again, a lot of the Portland Frogs, all kinds of fantasy animals doing in the street. Great signage. And every time there's a full protest on Pennsylvania Avenue, which is all of Pennsylvania Avenue was shut down, different groups come out and put up booths, like for homeless, for it's a lot of trying to solicit support. So that was good. And then Judy got on the metro and came back, and I walked all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House, and that. Well, let's do it this way. I've been here for 15 years. I've never seen the fences of the White House pushed back way into Lafayette Square Park. It's.
I mean, roughly, how many football fields would they be pushed back? Is it a football field? Is it 2 football fields?
Oh, it's easily. Well, if you think,
so
of
get some perspective on this.
Yeah, I'll give you some perspective on it. So, there is, of course, the White House itself. All right, on the Lafayette Park side. Then there's the grounds to the White House. Then there's the first fencing, which actually, in my time here, has been raised but it's spiky, and they've raised it a little bit because they were coming. Some people jump over it,
Right.
Some things. So that's there. Then you have a sidewalk, which is normally where people can stand and shoot the pictures. All right. So that's approximately a little bit more than a football field. A football field and a half, maybe, of distance. Like, that's never open more than that. Mm-hmm. Then you have the sidewalk, as I say. Then you have a road that really would probably easily fit 4 cars. And that's the transit.
Side by side, obviously.
Yeah, driving side by side. So, it's a, if anything, I guess you could imagine it's a double street. And then you have, that begins Lafayette Park itself, which is, I should get the square footage on that. I'll have it next time. But it's again it's bigger than a football field. And then that leads you out to the road. Okay.
So the White House, in other words, if you were where they pushed back to and you were looking at the White House, it would be very small looking at it.
It would be, you're looking at least 3.5 football fields,
yeah.
Maybe a little bit more even. And of course, what had happened was it was it would, knowing how big Lafayette Park is, and that is the sanctioned place for protests. You can get a permit to do it there, and I've seen. I don't know. I've seen close to 100, not hundreds, but in 15 years. In fact, when Trump first took office, if you remember, when he and Putin sat down in Finland, and they had that secret kind of conclave with just Putin's translator. From that moment, from that night, actually that very night, they set up and did what they called Kremlin Annex, and that ran for 18 months. That was a protest every night there. Of course, you've had for 44 years until 2 weeks ago. You had the Peace Vigil was there, and that was also anti-Trump as one of its elements. But so I go out there, and so I was talking to a couple people who I knew that were there, and I said, what's the day been like here? And they had a series of protests, some related to Trump, well, all in some way tied in. Actually, a group of American men and women, children, who had relatives or friends who died of fentanyl. They had one there. So there was a brief pro-Trump rally. I didn't see that.
Did you see any like saboteurs, so to speak, in there?
None. I walked. Now, what would that be? Right. I walked from Union Station to the Capitol. That's 5 blocks. From the Capitol to Pennsylvania Avenue, or on Pennsylvania Avenue, that's 9-10 blocks, right? And then the White House, another 5, so almost 20 blocks, and saw nothing. No opposition whatsoever. None.
That's a good sign.
Zilch, zero, none. Now, as I say, there was a mini protest earlier, but nothing. But then, when I got there, there was a young man who was on our side, but he was hot. He had a sign, and he felt there was a whole phalanx of police. There were almost as many police in there as there were protesters, because it was such a small place, right? They had you surrounded, but they're there. But he claimed this officer, who he was, excuse me, he was not just a line officer. He served some, sergeant or something. Anyway, that he had threatened him with his gun, and they're going at it. And once again, I said to this young man, I said, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Because he's going, "Fuck you! You tried to fucking kill me. What are you fucking wrong?" And agitating. And I'm thinking, like, okay, you don't need this. You really don't. Not that day. Not yesterday. So I interceded, and I talked surrounded by officers. And this guy, I tried to talk him down, literally. And I had very limited success, but I continued to do it. Just simply, I asked him the question I always ask. I said, "Is it more important for you to get arrested? Is that what you want to do? Because there's a time and place to get arrested. Or do you want to keep this sign out here?" I said, "It's a pretty good sign, and this." So eventually, what had happened when I came on that scene, it looked like there were 2 women inside this circle of police who were getting arrested. But actually, they had both had some kind of, I don't know if it was heat or whatever, and officers were just surrounding them and then took them out, no problems. It's the first time, Brian and friends, I've ever conversed with a Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. There was a talking tree there on a bicycle.
Sounds like Towley from South Park.
It really is. I mean, well, that's what this whole thing was. And so he was hilarious. Like, somebody come up, they said, "I got to ask you, what are you doing?" He says, "Oh, I'm here from Homeland Secure a Tree." It just went on the whole time. He was playing on tree. This guy was hilarious. And basically, he is now a professional protester, agitator, and he does the circuit from New York City to Washington, D.C. and back again. So today he chose Washington, D.C. And you saw a lot of that. Something else that I did, I interviewed tons of people, obviously, for some of the stuff I'm doing. The youngest protester that I interviewed, Brian, was 3 years old.
Really?
Yeah, and she was her mother brought her and her sister out, and she said, of course, I had reservations about it, but I just thought it's too important, and I wanted to show that I'm willing to bring the most precious things I have to this. That's how certain I am that we're right, and how certain I am that there will not be violence by our side. And that was interesting. And then she also said, which I thought was very good, she said, not for the 3-year-old. She said, I will show her pictures someday. And with the 6-year-old, and she said, no matter how this turns out, they will know that they were there as part of it, standing up for democracy. And I thought that was really cool. And I talked to a lot of parents who brought their kids out, and that was basically, and the kids they weren't like coerced. They were involved because their parents were involved. Mm-hmm. Now, on the other end of this age spectrum, 3 characters stand out. The oldest person that I interviewed was 93.
Wow.
In a wheelchair, and she was having a sign that I've never seen before. She did it herself. I agree with all the signs. I thought that was so cool, right? And she's pushing around, and she made her play, and we talked for a while. Then another, she was really, she was been doing this for years and years and years. She came dressed as the queen, as a queen, to say that we can have queens, but only if they're there to expel the king that shouldn't be. So that's what's her thing. And she was, she was 84. And then the most interesting gentleman, maybe the most interesting gentleman I've seen in Washington, D.C. in my time here that isn't, well known. He was 82. His first protest he did at age 8. And so he's been protesting for, if my math is correct, what would that be, 74 years of protest? And I mean, his life was a running record of what we try to fight for. He went to Howard University as a white person to stand up. His
was
parents
he that quarterback that was the white quarterback?
No.
But
this guy was, and so it was, what would I say? I guess the word I would use is very encouraging. Okay. Now, again, there's no statistics. I don't know what everybody's reading, but I've seen between the low is about 4 million worldwide, and the high that I've seen is 7 million. So somewhere between that number is probably the case. If you look at the photos, every big city was pretty impressive. New York, of course, Chicago, DC. Now, I did not go by design. I wanted to do something different. So I did not go to the actual rally where Bernie Sanders and some other people spoke. But people said that they were really inspired by Bernie. He did a typical Bernie job, which is now his thing. He's kind of he seems to get more revved up as he gets older. I mean, maybe it's just that's the way it is. He's become this, what would you say, protester emeritus.
Yeah, he definitely is like right on the spot on everything. Whereas someone like Biden was struggling, and just shows you the difference between people. They could be the same age, and
exactly
look what happens.
And again, as I've said before, but I think it's important. Joe Biden saved America. Why do I say that? He beat Donald Trump.
Right.
Okay. Joe Biden did a very good job of keeping the country in times,
given the circumstances too.
Absolutely. But Joe Biden did besmirch his own presidency. What he should have done, and it's easy to say now, but I said that all along. He should have done what he said. I will be a transition president, so I will serve 4 years. I will serve my term, but and then announce again after year 3. Now it's open. Choose my successor.
Gotten rid of Merrick Garland. Maybe that's one.
Well, we'll never.
Look, it's done. But
I won't live long enough to see this. I don't think. But because you need about 100 years to really understand what happened in history. But I'll be very interested to see, how is there an explanation for what Merrick Garland did? Because he, just as Joe Biden is in the camp of, I stopped Donald Trump, Merrick Garland is in the camp, whether it was by design, and it wasn't by design, but by just the weight of what he didn't do.
Right.
I allowed Donald Trump to win a second thing, and Merrick Garland is at the top of that list. And we can see, and I'm not saying it's good, but we can certainly see how a power-hungry and deranged man can use the Justice Department and weaponize it. And if there'd ever been a time to weaponize the Justice Department, it was time to weaponize it against Donald Trump,
Right.
who is a clear and present danger to every American living, whether they are for him, not for him, or don't care. Donald Trump is a bigger threat right now than Putin, is a bigger threat right now than any world power.
We have a comment here from Gary.
He delayed the seemingly inevitable. Along with Garland, they proved incapable. Well, Gary, like I said, I disagree with that. I would disagree with what you said, because what would have happened, Gary, if he didn't beat him, we would have had 8 years of Trump. So we'd be experiencing this 4 years older, 4 years now. Now, did it prove successful? No. We've already said that Garland did not. And you have to understand, Gary and others who feel that way, is the fact that Biden comes from another era.
Right.
We have to
He's
figure
from the
out a way.
70s, basically. You know what I mean?
We need to find a way, whether it's term limits or age limits or something, but to get the old folk out.
Well, there's some young farts too. I mean,
But
we
I'm
can't
just talking
guarantee
about
that.
in general. What is it? The average age of Congress is 68 or something like that.
Oh, really?
And the average age of America is 39 or something. I mean, it's this phenomenal
Right. It
difference.
just doesn't work out. Right.
And now, however, of course, then you do run into what I call the Bernie Sanders situation. Bernie is just as sharp today and just as good, and as you pointed out, just as much on
Because
point.
it's really a biological age rather than a calendar age, and I think people have
Right.
to respect that because, I mean, I know I'm going off topic here, but there have been
Right.
even studies where you know probably there was like this one kid who had a beard when he was in ninth grade, and those
Exactly.
people tend to live shorter lives because there is this thing
Right.
that happens with too many hormones, and it can affect your ability to live longer. So we can't necessarily just throw people out.
No, but I think you have to. It's sort of like going. Okay, for every Bernie Sanders, I think there are 10, 20, 33. You pick the number. People who have their expiration date was
Right.
long ago. You're seeing that play out in Washington D.C. It's not going to be pretty. Eleanor Norton Holmes, who is 88, is planning to run again as the non-voting delegate. Now, Eleanor is how can I say, she's the female equivalent of Marion Barry in a sense, right? She's just been around forever. She's fought a great fight. She really has. But man, I don't, at 80, and younger people, this has been my experience, and I spent a lot of time this past week doing that, trying to find out generational things and talking, and they're not. When I say they're not the same, they've not been raised in the same world that we have.
Right.
Okay, they haven't, and their world is now, and our world was then.
Then.
I'd love to tell you differently.
That's
but
something
I
we have
can't.
to accept.
Yes, and it's also, as you kind of pointed out or alluded to, there's also a thing about energy. I'm 73. I don't have the same energy I had at 60. There's no way 65. Now, I'm not feeble yet, and Joe Biden was feeble by the time he left. Donald Trump is failing before our very eyes, and I don't mean failing as a president. I'm saying failing as a person. Now, what were your thoughts yesterday? Because you spent your time with the Russians, and then
Right.
of course, so you're
I
watching-
made a personal choice of not. I have protested a lot. Everybody knows. I went to
Right.
the Jeff Van Drews. I went to
Right.
the Postal
Right.
Service thing. I went to the other one recently, and I did feel a little bit guilty. But I've been involved so much that, just like you said before, Dave, is that there are different ways that we can get involved. I didn't feel like obviously going to Washington. The local one, it would have been nice. I did consider I had to take my car in to get it in alignment. So, we all have our time to choose, pick
Yeah.
and choose when we're going to do this. And it just wasn't the day for me. I
Right.
couldn't put my heart into it. I'm disgusted with everything. And I think it's a great thing, the No Kings. I think, despite the fact that it doesn't actually politically change anything in terms of Congress or anything like that, but it does give them pause for thought that these people are amping it. We are amping it up now.
and that is correct. And
Where are they going to go when they see that we're amping up? What do they do? Because the only thing I can see them doing is getting physical with us, trying to intimidate, and we have to keep doing the opposite.
Correct. And I mean, if you think about it, just clear all of us clear all our thoughts about it. Masked ice against giant frogs in sweaty costumes. That's how can you be? I mean, they're going to be violent, but how do you how that's going to not really look good. Now, of course, Trump's idea of looking good is much different than a normal president's because he believes in power. He believes that he has it, and to a certain extent, he does. But even as much as that was encouraging, watching people come out, and you know, Brian, as well as I do, that that's going to inspire some more people to come out. We know for a fact that Trump is not going to get any better. He's only going to get worse. His tariffs will affect more people.
And the bill is coming, what, in January it starts?
Yep. And here's an interesting thing I mentioned earlier where I spent a lot of time, is at the Flair Veterans protest at Union Station. Not only did they both get renewed and will be there for the foreseeable future, but they're adding a third group is coming in who are farmers who are coming in to protest 24/7 against Trump. And we're seeing these groups, I mean, that's another segment. Okay, when you looked at MAGA, farmers were MAGA, okay? And they were a lot. But that's starting to break. And that's a little bit what I want to talk to tonight too, Brian, see your thoughts. I see, if I'm looking at MAGA, I see it dissolving a little bit. And the reason I say that is, first, Donald Trump's health. We're going to find out, I think, first of all, I do not believe that Donald Trump will finish his 4-year term. I do not. I think his health is deteriorating too quickly for him.
At least it's evident that he has health issues.
Correct.
So that is definitely something
we know,
we had to think
before
about.
We get carried away, we know that Donald Trump will stay there and try to be president, even
and he will get the best care possible.
Right. But, and we know historically, crossing parties, for example, a lot of people didn't even realize that FDR, was in a wheelchair. I mean, that was kind of disguised. I mean, it's always been that way. Then you've got Woodrow Wilson, whose wife ran the country after he suffered a stroke. You've got Biden to do that. You've got Reagan, who was at some point in dementia. And it's a lot of reasons that wouldn't be. But I think I find that encouraging. If it were a young person, you say, oh my God, he might be here forever. Another reason for encouragement, I think, at this point, is the sharks and piranha are circling. Okay, what do I mean by that? Joe Rogan, who I will go on record as saying, if you had to pick 10 people in America who catapulted Donald Trump to victory, Joe Rogan is one of those. He has a following that is greater than Alex Jones's numbers. Is greater. I don't know if it's greater than. Well, at one point he was the number one blogger in America, or number one podcaster in America, and his group is mostly young men. He's like, I guess, Brian, the way I look at him, he's like the anti-Howard Stern. You know what I mean? That Stern is a leftist. Rogan used to be a little bit left. Now he's right. And he has actually pulled back and admitted, I think I made a mistake. And a couple of the other bloggers, I keep saying bloggers, a couple of the other big right-wing podcasters have kind of said the same thing. One said he's pulling out of, I shouldn't have got involved in politics. I didn't really understand it enough. And so, these people have influence. They do. They might have, with their people, they have more influence than the president of the United States. No question about that. And then you have whatever the hell is happening with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And basically, for anyone who isn't following that, Marjorie Taylor Greene was the female poster child for MAGA.
But she hasn't said much this past week, has she?
Well, no, but she has been. I mean, she's been very forceful.
It makes me wonder if somebody got to her, and said,
well, that could be.
Cut this thing out.
Well, but again, it's still on record that she did it. Do you know what I mean? So at that moment, she was sensing something. Now,
Well,
I
so did
don't know.
Vance. I mean, but Vance shut the fuck up, after a while.
Well, Vance is bought and sold twice. I mean, he can't really. The vice president really.
Well, what
can't attack.
Republican really can't be bought or sold? That's the thing.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going out on a limb here. I don't know that Marjorie Taylor Greene can, and I'll tell you why. I don't know. I don't think she's smart enough to understand how to be sold. I really do. I think she believes a lot of that stuff she says. I really do. Now, when you start talking about space lasers, and Jewish cabals, I mean, you're out there in la la land. But I think she does believe it. I think Mike Johnson, doesn't believe a goddamn thing he says. Okay, that's all politics, 100% politics. Also, think about the people you haven't heard for a while. Have you heard anything from Josh Hawley?
No, that's another one his mouth was always open, and
Yep.
all of a sudden he's not saying
And so
anything.
that says something. And again, what it says, I don't know. Ted Cruz, of course, is always going to be Ted Cruz. He goes back and forth, and so you can't really look at him. But what I'm saying is, you're seeing these cracks develop, and interestingly enough, a lot of the right wing side is coming after three things. One is they believe, a lot of them, or that follow the podcast, believed Trump was a president or would be a president of peace. And we're seeing that that's total bullshit.
He can't
right?
avoid it now because he can't.
Well, he's in
He
so
can't
deep
solve
now.
conflicts. He and the people who think he's going to that the Gaza thing is look what happened today. I mean, as if Hamas was going to listen to anything. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Or let's be fair. Or if Netanyahu was going to listen to anything.
Right.
It's
Well,
not-
Netanyahu does listen to Trump because he knows he can't get any arms from him. But Hamas, they didn't, and it
Well,
just goes to
and-
show
and-
he's got
but-
no.
But I'm just saying, again, this is just nobody can convince me. Netanyahu is a bad dude, and Hamas is a bad group. And when you have that, I don't see how you make peace
It's not going to happen.
with those factors, right? So, and then the other thing is that was interesting. I've been reading some articles about why this pullback from young white MAGA males. So that's part of it. The other is that they're really feeling that there's a better way than ICE. That they're not real happy with that because, which is interesting, they're making a difference. I'm not talking about
That won't translate into Democratic votes, though. I don't think.
No, but what Laura Loomer said, there's another one. She kind of gave permission. She said, I'm not going to vote in 2026. Now, she will. Okay, I'm not saying that. But all of a sudden, it plants that seed that somebody might say, you know what? Yeah, I can't vote for Democrat, but I can't vote for
Interesting
them either.
take here by Gary. Do you wonder?
Let's see what he got.
He's basically saying that had Trump won, he would have been a better president, basically, than because he's so angry and vindictive. I think there's.
Okay.
I don't know that he would have
I'm
been
not
a
gonna-
different
I'm not gonna
president, but
dismiss-
he certainly
I'm not gonna-
became more vindictive after that.
I'm
that's
not
for
going to
sure.
dismiss Gary's out of turn. I mean, certainly he has a point. But I just think Trump was headed there anyway. And remember, by the end of the term, who did he have? Who did he have? He'd gotten rid. He was not quite as bad as the people he has now, but he didn't have anybody tying his hands.
Yeah, he got rid of everybody basically.
Yeah.
The only person that I guess is there is Stephen Miller and
let me say
people behind the
something.
scenes.
Yeah,
when he needs
now
them.
there's something else I would ask anybody who has any thoughts on this in the comments to go with. Stephen Miller he's the most dangerous man in America who's not the president, I think. But what was interesting, in the first term, 4 years, Stephen Miller was behind the scenes. And that's more deadly because nobody can attack him. Now he's out there. And I don't know if you've been following this, Brian, or even how many people follow it. He lived not far from where we do in Arlington. I think his house was worth $3.25 million, something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's not unusual here. But the neighbors were chalking the sidewalks. And he actually said they're interfering, and he left. He ran because of chalk. Mm-hmm. So the reason is he's now known, and you can single him out. So I don't know what that means. It's sort of like the way I feel about Peter Thiel. I think Peter Thiel is the most dangerous of the oligarchs, simply because he doesn't care about the publicity. He only cares about the results. Bezos is always, has himself out there. Musk, we saw how much it almost destroyed Musk in terms of Elon Musk is not as powerful as he was, before, because he had his time and got battered. Now, something we haven't talked about yet, and I think we need to talk about a little bit. Did you see Trump's response?
To the king, no kings.
Yeah, did you see it?
I know he went golfing that day, and
Yep. Nope. Nope.
he said
all
something
that.
really bizarre, actually.
He didn't say any. What he did is, this was released from the White House. He released a completely AI rendition of him with a crown,
Right,
flying a
right,
jet,
right, right.
dumping shit,
see that.
literally shit, onto simulated protesters.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's look at that. Certainly, that's a doubling down. I mean, for anybody who doubts he wants to be king, there's no reason. You can want him to be king if you want, but he is that power hungry. Secondly, certainly the ship idea, which had sailed before, the idea of any kind of gravitas for the presidential office while he is there is hopeless. I've argued with numerous people, and I never held this position, that you should respect the office. Fuck that.
Right.
You respect the person in the office. The only people you should respect, and even they sometimes are not, maybe are your parents. But if your dad's sexually abusing you, or, if you're a woman or if it's male, whatever, I don't think he or whatever is. In fact, I'll go so far to say there's really nobody in the world, God included, if you want to believe in him, that deserves respect just for the position. You have to look at what they're doing. And that's, so Trump has certainly, in my mind, verified that there's no reason to respect the president of the United States simply because he, and hopefully someday she, will be president. Now, again, we see some other things which are unusual, but the attacks are coming, which I like, would be the Pope. The new Pope is certainly, while not mentioning Trump by name, is certainly a champion of the immigrants. And he's pretty much clearly saying that, why do I like that? Well, I like it because of Stan, but I also like it because it creates kind of a conundrum for Catholic voters. Do I follow the head of my church, or do I follow the president of the United States?
Right.
And anytime you cause people to question following Donald Trump, that's a good thing. Abandon MAGA?
Because there was a comment, Global had mentioned that people have not abandoned MAGA. They're just upset that he hasn't done what he's promised. And I kind of agree with that. I think that they're locked in. They're still locked in.
Okay. Let's do it this way. My belief, every politician on MAGA Republican side, for the most part, will stay with Trump unless they are convinced that their staying with Trump will cost them an election. They still put their own self ahead. Right now, the smart move is to be supportive and with Donald Trump. If that were ever to change, MAGA support at the governmental level would disappear. As far as the people themselves, they are in a cult. It's, it is a cult. There's no other way to describe it. It's a cult with authoritarian purposes. And I like, because I do that a lot. I like when the MAGA people get upset about calling them Nazis. Well, they are.
They are.
They are. Now, again, it's like when you talk about God, everybody has an image of God. And so it's hard to talk about. Same with Nazis. Everybody has an image of what a Nazi is.
Well, they don't have the boot jacks on right now, but that doesn't really matter.
Well, I might say that some of the incidents I've seen with ICE, no different. The only thing is they're not sending it. And look, okay, you have to remember, look at history. The Germans initially did not send their political prisoners to their own camps. They sent them away because they wanted them out. And so, how does sending somebody who's Colombian, sending them to Senegal, make sense in anybody's world? Again, numbers are tough to come by, but I think that I think it's up to 18 now. 18 detainees have died in ICE custody. Now, is that number high? Is that number low? I don't know. You know what you base it on. And again, I come back to my argument, and I would argue this with anybody. There is a proper, decent, and humane way to do things. And those words do not apply. What the hell are you doing?
I have
You
an
playing
air
with
tag
yourself?
that's not working, and I'm trying to connect while you're talking. I'm listening
I'm
to you.
laughing. Oh no, I'm not worried about you listening to it. I
I'm
just worried
pissed.
you were. I just worried you were. Fond.
No,
of
I
yourself.
wasn't doing anything like that.
Okay, good. I was
It's
worried
not
about
my
that.
thing.
Okay, so now again, you can go back and forth, but let me ask you, Brian, and you're just speaking for you. I'm going to say, and I'm just speaking for me, I do not think that Donald Trump will last to finish his term. What say you?
If there's any way possible that he can finish it, he will finish it. You know what? I would like to agree with you that he won't finish his term because of his health.
Don't like to agree, but what do you think? I mean,
But I
I'm
think that the way things are going, it's just a long stretch of bad luck. It's like the devil has taken over. He'll last this thing out. He'll
Okay.
last it out.
Okay.
I think he has a
All right.
damn good chance of lasting this thing out.
Okay, that's fine. Now let's get to the next question, because that provokes another question. Will he attempt to have a third term in 2028?
If he feels that he's in jeopardy, should he not have a third term?
And let me stop you there just from, is there any way he would not be in jeopardy? And the answer to that is no. He will be
No,
in
so I
jeopardy.
mean, chances are he'll go for a third term, and like I say, we don't really have a Supreme Court.
Correct.
They're just a
No.
corrupt organization. And when I say corrupt organization, we have 3 members who are not corrupt, but they can't do much except have a dissenting opinion.
Correct.
So,
But so it's interesting. Here I'm saying that. So what I'm saying is in essence, I don't think Trump is going to make it. But if he does, and I'm wrong, there's no question in my mind he will make a bid for 2028. No question in my mind. If he can finish his term, then the question becomes,
and he's going to have to say it within a year or so, because there will be Republican candidates waiting in the wing to go into the
and that's
nomination process.
there you
So
are.
they've got to know too.
Yeah. And one of the things, you are seeing another little ripple here in D.C. Trump does not want any Republican congressmen or senators to leave because, if they leave, there's a chance
Right,
that
that
a Democrat could be
exactly.
voted in. And a number of them have said no, and they're running for a job that they want, whether it's a congressman moving up to run for senator, whether it's a Tommy Tuberville from Alabama saying, I'm going to go run for governor. Now, Alabama's a safe state. They're not going to re-elect.
And you know that because you've been there and you see.
I spent a lot of time there because my grandkids kids are there. And Alabama is a very safe red state. Now,
I'm just wondering how your grandkids can deal with that crap.
well, you know what? It's funny, and you ask, and so I will answer. My granddaughter thinks it's horrible. She watches a lot of John Oliver. She watches a lot of South Park. She gets to the point where she's a pariah in her high school, pretty much.
I mean, she openly.
Oh yeah. Oh, like I said, the most open thing she did. She wears periodically. She wears a supports trans kids T-shirt to an Alabama high school. I mean, it doesn't get any.
Right.
So,
but she's in Tuscaloosa, so
she's in Tuscaloosa. So it's not quite as bad. But most of the people that would be her friend, and she just says they're not my people. And that's it. She lets it go. Owen, who's a grandson, his thing is sports, and he's got a very different personality. He tweaks his sister about being MAGA, but he knows. Okay, he started. He started going to Bible study. I said, "Oh, wait, what's up?" He said, "Oh man, Johnny's mom makes the best desserts in the world, and we get them when we go there." So he went to get food, not that. He plays sports with these guys.
Well, they'll still try to pollute.
Oh, well, yeah, but he's not. It's not going to move him. It's not going to move him. He's not. He's what you would call
Unless, of
Right.
course, there's a nice looking girl there who's really religious.
Well, I will say that's always a possibility. And actually, there may be somebody. My daughter-in-law will kill me because she knows it. There may be somebody in Always life because for the very first time he cleaned out his car and then he went and picked this girl up. So that could be serious when you clean your car for a girl. But no, you see that. And again, I've said it, and I'll say it with any time I'm asked. With the Southerners, there's a surface politeness that is much better than anything you will witness in the Northeast Corridor. But right under that is the dark side that they bring. And that's bring historically, bring that. And talking about a friend who's converted to the dark side, and some people have asked me about it, and I didn't know because I wasn't there to watch. But somebody who is knowing say it actually started at two moments, and this is not unusual. This person got divorced from his wife and began watching Fox News in retirement. And I refused. I don't watch news at all. But certainly, if you listen to Fox News as your sole source of news, or Fox and OAN or whatever, you're not going to have an accurate picture of the United States of America.
They don't want it. They enjoy their world of fantasy.
It's
dopamine.
I think for some, but I think there's just some that they believe that's truth because they grew up in a time. Think about this: if you're older than 60, you grew up in a time of Walter Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley and Edward R. Murrow, and people believed that to be the truth. And for the most part, it was. For the most part. Yeah, you can display him. That may be Gary, that's a good South Park episode because Baby Vance can grow up to be that. Now, which brings up an interesting point. A lot of talk this week, and I think there's some truth to this. The best way to battle Donald Trump is in the courts, which so far have been holding, not the Supreme Court.
Right.
I'm talking about which
The lower courts.
They're the lower courts. I think there are now up to 141, 144, something like that, cases, the United States versus Donald Trump. So that's out there. But another good way to do that is ridicule, mockery, satire, because Donald Trump has a tremendous inflated ego. And when you can puncture that ego, and don't think that doesn't bother him. I've never met a pompous person who, when they were made fun of, it didn't bother them. He's not above that. And so, when you take, there's people taking him on. And victories. Jimmy Kimmel was a victory, okay? Stephen Colbert.
That was a victory.
Stephen Colbert was not, but Stephen Colbert will bounce back. I mean, and I think we're going to have to, one of the things we're going to have to do is realize that it's not just Fox and OAN and Newsmax, etc. It's pretty much all the networks now are in the hands of not Trumpers, but in the hands of the oligarchs who side with the Trumpers because they can use them. So I would not expect to see, you still got Saturday Night Live. They're still biting satire.
And really, and that's something that the Russians did ask me today, the couple of Russians.
Right.
Is that, they keep mentioning the free press, and, they certainly know that all branches of the government are now controlled by the Republicans, but they always ask me, do you still consider the United States having a free press? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
Until they start shooting people like Putin did.
Well,
we do.
And the other thing is, you rise to the occasion. It was a great list, and I can't. I think I counted. It was either 7, 9. Only 7 news organizations around the world agreed to Hegseth's thing that you can't. We will control the news. Is basically what it was. You can't talk to anybody in the Pentagon without our permission, and they walked. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about that to me as a former journalist is they realize, the reporters realize, there's no truth coming from Peter Hegseth. None.
Nothing.
Absolutely zilch, zero. And that applies to everybody in the Trump administration. So, people say, it used to be the argument, we need to be close to sources. Well, you don't, because those sources are not going to tell you the truth.
Right.
And what was it? Somebody help me out with this. I'm blanking on this, but it was what? Violent criminal, something else, little lady spokesperson, identified. They put them in three categories. You're either this, that, or the other. And there were a lot of signs playing with that idea, like, 76-year-old violent criminal. That kind of thing, playing with it. Okay, the 25th Amendment is always in play. The problem becomes, it would have to be for them. Well, there you are. Gary's got a point. And I really don't think we're paying enough attention to that. I really don't.
Well, how do we know right now, one way or another, whether these are innocent people or not?
You don't. All right. So you have to figure, would it make sense that Trump would order a bombing of innocent people? And the answer is, he would. Okay. So now there are, I believe, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have our first two survivors.
Right. I think you were correct.
So, but you notice they've been spirited away somewhere. And you say, well, Venezuela, we can kick their ass. Okay, we can. But what if China decides, we'll come in on their side? I mean, Trump doesn't get the idea.
Or all of South America decides.
Exactly.
It's a lot harder.
And are drug cartels a problem? Of course they're a problem. But it's the old boogeyman. The problem are MAGA. I mean, that's the problem in America. Drug cartels are not good. And as I said, they certainly, but, it's not. And the problem in America is the oligarchs. You don't have to look for foreign drug cartels. And Brian, there's so much money to be made in that. So much money. You could actually say a lot of this. Gary was speaking earlier, I think, of he saw an ad for ICE. And I mean, they're up to quite a bit. I mean, what is it, $100,000 now bonus, or $80,000 bonus to sign? And this is what's ironic. They will take away, one of the things they will do, they will take away your student debt. They will assume your student debt. Now, how many college graduates would go into ICE?
All of a sudden, they want to pay for people's education.
Well, that's because they can use them.
Right.
But here's another thing, and I spend quite a bit of time doing this. And again, it's not a scientific survey or anything, but to a person, everybody who has some involvement with the Pentagon believes this to be true. When it comes, we'll use a cliche, push to shove, the generals will honor the Constitution and not honor the commander-in-chief. Now, that seems to be the belief, and it may well come to that. Again, because of the situation we're in, I've never talked to so many National Guard kids, and they are kids, in my life. They don't want to be here. They want to go home, but they're here. They're ordered to be here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading them wrong. I don't know that they would lift their weapons against Americans. I really don't. I'm not. I think then, and this veterans group is doing an excellent job in DC and across the country of schooling these. They go up to them every day and talk to them about what their rights are as a military to reject an order that doesn't conform to the Constitution. So they're getting, it's interesting. Trump brought them here to intimidate, and in a way they're getting indoctrinated by the good side because people are spending a lot of time going up to them. My little thing is I just go up to them. Whenever I see them, I said, listen, guys, we may be on completely political different sides. I don't know. I really don't care. I want you to do two things. I want you to be smart out here, and I want you to be safe. And I do. They're not the enemy. The enemy, as far as troops right now, are ICE. And I speak with certainty. Now, I'm not, I've seen really good things that the Secret Service has done. And remember, we're not talking about the Secret Service that guard the president. We're talking about the Secret Service that, work the crowds. I've seen good things that Amtrak police have done. I've seen good things that the city police have done. And you have to remember, too, that because the city police in D.C., because, it's still, it's 50-50 now almost with white and black, but the majority of officers are officers of people of color. So that that's another thing too. It's one thing to turn on Americans; it's another to turn on your people. Um, and even though I said all this, and we've talked about this before, Brian, I still, I don't fear it. I just believe it will happen. There will be a Kent State-like incident. It has to happen. There's too much out there for it not to happen. And then again, what will that do? Will that bring more people to our side? Will it bring more people to their side? And I have to say, I'm saying this somewhat satirically, but I'm also saying, if somebody shoots somebody in a frog costume, if somebody shoots and kills a 60-year-old lady, if someone shoots and kills directly or indirectly 4 kids, that's a big difference than doing what they said they were going to do, which was take on the gangs and and you notice, how many gang members have you seen arrested? Now they claim they are, but they're not.
I don't see it.
No, they come to.
What do you think about Gary's coming here about the military? We were discussing this last week. You almost hoped for a military coup, but I still don't see that happening. There's still many conservatives within the military.
Yeah, but Brian, you got to remember.
And what happens when they split? That's a good question.
That's a question. But for the most part, one of the prerequisites to be in the military is you follow orders, right? I mean, if you can't be in there. Right. I'm not doing that. It doesn't fly. Well, if you look at the 800 generals, right, that you saw, I will guarantee you this. There were more advanced degrees in that room than any other 800 people you could gather in the United States of America, including politicians. So if education means anything, I certainly, we could ask a question. How can an educated person support Donald Trump?
It's possible.
But it's not. There are more educated people who don't. And
right.
Brian, those educated people do have a second agenda. Either they want to rip somebody off or they hate somebody.
Right.
It's not,
right.
So they let that second agenda overcome whatever intelligence they have. And the generals don't have that. And if you're going to ask me one of the most surprising things of my 15 years here in D.C., it is the quality of the United States military. I haven't, interviewed them all. I haven't talked to them all, but I live in buildings with them, or live in a building with them, I should say, not buildings. And to a person, they're not the idea of the old World War II military grunt. Many of them, are educated. A lot of college degrees. A lot of go into the service to get their college degrees, right? And it's a very viable way to do that. So yeah, it is an unknown, and I think your thing is kind of interesting, Brian. There are MAGA people in the military and non-MAGA people. It's just the same as here, and people just want to be left alone. And who sides with whom and what does what.
And don't forget, Trump will have the ability to get rid of some of them. And those who do like him will say, well, this is the guy you want to go, this guy should go, and this guy should go. And they will.
Again, yes. But at the same time, speaking of which, the head of the military branch that handles South America just walked. He just walked. And okay, well, that you could say, oh my God, that we lost him. But it gives pause in the military to say, wait a minute, I better look at this Trump dude again. And the other thing I wanted to comment before we run out of time, just interesting, there were a handful of violent incidents, or nearly violent incidents, in the United States. And I mean, it's minuscule, but every one of them involved a Trumper. Every one of them involved a Trumper. The big one is the woman who pulled a gun out, in some place and did that. So, and you live by reputation. Okay, I was thinking about this, and a lot of people, they were just amazed. This many people and no fights. This many people. Think about that. I mean, you got all these people out on the street. They're bumping into one another. It didn't. Right. And that's some self-discipline. But it's also
you didn't hear anything about fires. I mean, I'm sure something happened somewhere, but considering 7 million people protesting,
the numbers, but also with
very peaceful.
And you know what? I see that kind of as analogous to Woodstock. That was really a revolutionary movement in this. Now, depending, the numbers are 250,000 to 500,000. You name your number, but it was hell of a lot of people, and people. Woodstock's myth is much better than Woodstock itself. Okay, and I think these kinds of things become mythological with 7 million people not fighting in an America where we all fight at the drop of the hat. So then you have to look at, and people are looking at this. It's not as sophisticated as it sounds. Well, why didn't they fight? Well, wait a minute. There were no MAGA people there. I'm talking about that third or whatever it is that aren't there. And so I think that was very valuable. And that's why, again, I'm not a hero. I'm not in, but that's why I interceded so hard on behalf of the to try to defray that at Lafayette Park. And to be honest with you, this is the second time I've done that at Lafayette Park, and both times the protester was at fault, not the police. And that doesn't mean that's always that way. But in those cases, I was there, I saw it, and in my eyes, that was done. And I really didn't want to see that kid. I don't care what happens to him, but I really didn't want to see that incident, mar the other stuff. And something else, I talked about the creativity of the protesters. I met a young man. Now think about this, Brian. He goes every day he can. He goes to Lafayette Park. He has Mary Trump's book about Donald Trump, and he reads it out loud. You say, well, people come over. Why are you doing that? What's up with that? And that again, of course, one of the problems at Lafayette Square Park is the majority of visitors are foreign. The majority. And you still have some breaking moments like school troops come and they have their MAGA hats, whether they're really MAGA or whether they just bought them here. But we'll kind of end the way we do. So it goes to you first. More optimistic, less optimistic than you were only when we talk about this time last week. Where do you line up, Brian?
Well, I would say that I am just a hair more optimistic because of what happened. I think that the coalition of forces, that people know something has to be done. In the past, people just sat their asses down. These are the times when I was out there doing the protests. It was not fashionable. But now people finally are realizing that this is the key issue. It is fucking democracy. It's not about the economy. It's about democracy. And we can take care of the economy later. But right now, it's about freedom. And this country is, this was the bastion of freedom of the world. And as the United States goes, so does the world. I mean, there's just very few democracies that are true democracies. And, with all the craziness in the world, with all the fascism, the autocracies, the theocracies, they have to end. But unfortunately, the bullshit continues. So I am slightly more optimistic, but that doesn't mean I'm optimistic. It just means I'm less,
well, that's all we do each week.
Negative, pessimistic out of it.
And I am also more optimistic than I was this time. And on both sides, I'm more optimistic because I see MAGA as a movement weakening, and I see Trump physically deteriorating, and I see Trump is going to continue to push because that's all he can do. And I don't see his pushing. Okay, let's do it this way. The last time the country was pretty much unified, or at least more unified than normal, was 9/11, the days after 9/11. All right. So we don't have that. We have that kind of thing, and depending on what Donald Trump does. And I do think this too. I saw a really valuable piece of information out there. Somebody said, listen, basically they said this, listen, okay, you're saying, this and that and the other. What does your grocery bill say? And Trump promised, and a hell of a lot of people voted for him. He
would lower the price.
Your
first day
costs were going up. And he said, I will stop this. I will bring it down. Now, we know his math is a little suspect. He has actually said, Brian, that he will bring drug costs down 1,000%.
Right.
Now, what that would be is he's going to give you 900% of whatever you spent back. I mean, it just doesn't work. I mean, it's
Right. I
beyond.
mean, but
belief.
even if you didn't like take it word for word, letter by letter, the idea is that the price is going to go way down, and it hasn't. Okay.
And that's it.
And even if it does, you're not going to get the drugs because somehow the supply won't be there.
Well, yes, and we know, and then I guess time is of the essence for us because we had time to end the Vietnam War. I wish we'd ended it earlier, but eventually we did. We had time to improve civil rights. We had time to make America better for gay people. Not perfect, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it took time. We don't have a lot of time right now because we have to make sure that fair elections, if we can, and you've been one of the champions of that there won't be, and I cannot argue with you. I will not. There'll be efforts to do that, no question in my mind. You've got gerrymandering, you've got the courts, which are already saying, they're undoing 50
Right.
years of civil rights rulings in terms of voting by a vote of 6-3. So anyway, coming up now, the next thing I do have kind of an announcement, I guess. So as part of this, there's a group who is now planning to kind of follow the idea of Occupy. And starting November 5th, they're going to take over, try to have a presence constantly at the Supreme Court, at the White House.
They're going to try, you said. That's the important verb there.
And yes. Well, again, it's all about the pictures and how you interpret them. I mean, there are people who say that was just tours. I mean, absolutely insane. But again, remember, we're only talking about our people. We can't worry about MAGA. And we also have to try to bring people who are apolitical in. So that will be interesting. And they said more details to follow, but they announced it in the middle of that big celebration or celebratory thing in the middle of Pennsylvania Avenue. So there's no question they're going to plan it. And again, one last thing for people out here. Remember, all these disparate groups, they've got to kind of come together at some point, but they're not there. And we still had, if you believe it, somewhere between 5 and 7 million people out there without an organized group. So it's a little different than it used to be. You don't have to have, one group leading the charge. And with that, look, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm going on another sojourn among that into Trump country to check it out a little bit. Be down in Florida for a few days, and always make it a point to hang out at a restaurant or somewhere else, just to listen in and see what's going on.
Is this where in Florida is this, Dave?
It'll be Orlando. It's Orlando, so it's different.
So you're in better shape than if you've been northern.
Oh no! I mean, but there's still Floridians in Orlando, and it's interesting. Well, there's another person. DeSantis is just quietly doing his thing, and he's staying mother. But again, DeSantis believes that he should have been and will try to be president again. And DeSantis is not Josh
those
Hawley.
white boots, that's for sure. Well, Dave, thank you
all right,
very
man.
much. Thank you, everybody. And I guess we'll see you next week, right, Dave?
Really nice, ladies and gentlemen, to see the comments up there, because we said it before, but it bears repeating, that this show is not about Brian and I. It's about presenting a forum.
Right. And please get everybody to subscribe and to join.
Yeah, and I think that's even
on Facebook.
That's even more important now, because we have to be in this together, not just to have a chance to win, but just to have survival. Right. So anyway.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.